Hello, and welcome to this Get IAM Right series webcast. Today's topic is the changing face of privileged access management. My name is Kelly Hardy, and I am the Product Marketing Manager for the One Identity's Privilege Management Solutions, and your host for today's call. I also have Tyler Reese on the line, Product Manager for One Identity's PAM Solutions. Today, Tyler is going to walk us through some of the challenges organizations are facing today and how our newest solution, One Identity Safeguard, is changing the face of privileged access management. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tyler.
Thanks, Kelly. Um, Hi, everyone. My name is Tyler Reese. I'm one of the product managers here at One Identity, primarily covering our privileged access management solutions. And I'm happy to join you this morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you might be, to discuss some of the challenges that we see our customers facing in the privileged account market space, and then briefly talk about some of the solutions that we have to alleviate those challenges. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. Go to slide 2. So let's talk about what we see in the market as we've talked to customers and the challenges that they face for PAM. The first one that we see is that, and we like to say that PAM projects are sometimes becoming identity management or access management problems. So what does that exactly mean? Well, that means that as customers and companies are looking to deploy PAM solutions, we find that the time to value becomes increasingly long. And so this is some reminiscent of some of the challenges we also saw when we talked about governance and identity and access management products. We won't be covering a product that can also be deployed quickly for those issues, but wanted to focus specifically on PAM. And so as an organization looks to start a PAM project, to provide the necessary protection to their assets, we're seeing that those projects can sometimes go out for 12, 24, 36 months or even longer. And so as CISOs and deputy CISOs and others that are sponsoring these projects start to embark upon them, there's a lot of pressure to start showing the value for their hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in investment. And so as we have talked to our customers, that is one of the requirements that they are now having, is that it can't take 2 to 3 years to show that value. And we can address specifically what we're doing in that space. The next one is that securing access to these PAM solutions is time-consuming and costly. So as customers start to embark on a PAM project, we're starting to see that not only is it taking long to deploy it, but also the expertise that is needed to pull that in to get it going is also as equally complicated. So whether that's DBAs for the back-end databases, whether it's additional teams to manage the servers or the patching or whatnot, all of these people come into play, and it just elongates the ability to find value and to get that PAM solution going. Next one is number 3 is adding additional PAM functionality becomes a high cost, whether that's just dollar amount or just a cost to the organization through training and through learning new products. So as we see customers start with an initial PAM deployment, which could be just as simple as managing the privilege accounts in an organization, they may move on to things such as being able to do session management or being able to do endpoint or Unix delegation or Windows delegation, sometimes called application management. But as customers start to pull in these additional products, it requires additional servers, additional licensing, new consoles that may not be familiar to them, and the ability to get those deployed severely decreases because of the newness or the additional consoles or additional servers that their customers need to use to be able to use them. Next one is that PAM requires the trade-off between flexibility and security. So we see that as customers embrace PAM, that they lose their flexibility and their agileness in the organization. And so, that's always been one of the most difficult issues as security professionals, is deploying security products, but then having users not want to use those products because of the loss of the flexibility. And then what we're seeing with in organizations too is that organizations continually want to bring their systems together. And so sometimes this is referred to as the API economy, or being able to take these systems and say take a privilege account management system, integrate it into a ticketing system, integrate that also into another line of business system. Um, and so by doing this, it gives a better view of the organization or a more seamless end user experience. But it also requires that we have an open set of APIs and not custom interfaces or custom CLIs that may not be easily consumable by other systems. And then finally, what would be a product in today's world if we didn't address the cloud? But again, one of the most hard parts of any CISO's job right now is being able to have an answer to the organization on what their cloud strategy is, how they're managing the cloud, how they're securing the cloud, and Safeguard has a bunch of different ways that we can help do that. But that is paramount in not only managing the cloud, but also being able to find value through additional cloud services. So let's briefly talk about the platform that we have recently released as a 2.0 release, I should say, that can help address some of these challenges, and we'll go by them one by one. Just recently, as of a couple weeks ago, we released the One Identity Safeguard 2.0 product, and that is a modern platform that has been built to address many of the customer challenges that we talked about today. It has both a password and session module. It is modular to accommodate additional modules, and we will be releasing them within the next 12 to 18 months. And what's great about this solution is that it gives us a common set of consoles, APIs, rules, reporting, licensing, so on and so forth, so that as organizations need to add additional capabilities, there are not new consoles, new APIs, new ways of doing business, that all of them will come through Safeguard. And not only is this platform modular, but it also is modern. So it has an HTML5 interface. It has an HTML5 interface. It also has support for things such as OAuth 2, being able to have advanced time series reporting. And what that means is that we have the ability to extract literally billions of audit records per second, so that organizations that are using their PAM tools as audit devices, which most all of them are, it gives them the ability to extract that information quickly and efficiently so that it can be given out to the individuals and systems that need it. So let's talk about first about protecting the solution that protects your privilege accounts. Safeguard is a secure hardened appliance. It does have full disk encryption, built-in hardware firewall, and is purpose-built for security. And so what exactly that means is not only is it a secure hardened appliance that has been hardened from top to bottom, so we go through a lot of different layers of security. There is a common phrase, defense in depth, where you add multiple layers of security to create a good posture of defense. So not only is the application hardened, but also the OS is hardened, and even down to the hardware itself. So we have again, a purpose-built appliance. There is no video out. There is a locked BIOS. The USB ports are disabled. All of this has been the hardware has actually been engineered also so that there's no physical attacks can be brought against it. And so again, we treat the vault very similar to how an HSM manufacturer would treat the hardware appliance that their HSM is built upon, so that even the physical attacks can be stopped. But what does that mean exactly also to our customers? So one of the additional benefits that our customers will receive is that all of the necessary componentry, so the licenses and also the configuration, the detailed configuration of things like clustering, are all built in the factory. So, for example, when a customer needs to cluster Safeguard appliances together, there's no need to engage a database administrator or any one of the many specialties in the organization to have to perform this function. It can be done as simple as a wizard-driven point-and-click interface, so that as additional safeguard appliances need to be added or patching needs to occur, or any one of the many administrative duties that is required when having a solution like this. It's all done in the box with very simple, easy wizards that have been created by the safeguard development team, so as not to need a specialty DBA that could potentially may not be security trained. And so if they have to configure different aspects of the appliance, whether that's the database or whether that's the hardening of the OS, since it's all done in the factory, there's no potential mix-up that could cause a potential breach in the security posture of the product. So the next topic that we want to talk about is what we call the frictionless security aspect of the product. So as many customers use security products, their user base can sometimes rebel because of the difficulty of using the product, whether that's being able to get into the interface of the product, whether it's to provide approvals based on policy from the security department. There could be a whole host of reasons, but as we've talked to customers, we've noticed that the ability to provide a seamless solution to their, not only themselves as the actual implementers of the solution, but also their end user base, that becomes very important, so that the user base does not have some sort of rebellion and then try to throw the security tool out. And we've heard that many times. So some of the things that we've done inside of Safeguard to help with this is, first of all, we've hired a series of UI and UX experts that have gone through all of the use cases that a user would go through in their daily course of activities, not only from requesting and accessing passwords, but also just administering the appliance. And we've built UIs and experiences to be able to be seamless, so that it doesn't provide friction to that end user. One example of that would be a term that we have called favorites. So as we found out how users work, many of them come to the Vault every single day to use the same set of privilege accounts to perform the activities they need to for their job. Favorites is an ability to pin a particular privilege account that a user might need for the day and be able to access that in a one-click manner. So they can come into the solution, be able to click that particular privilege account, make the request, and have it released to them either immediately through auto approve, or be able to have that go through approval process and release. And this gives them the ability to have access to those privilege accounts without having to go through wizards or other screens. Just have that done seamlessly. Another aspect that we're really excited about. One second. Excuse me there. Another aspect that we're really excited about is a technology that we unveiled with the 2.0 release of Safeguard called Approval Anywhere. So as part of the One Identity portfolio, we have a set of cloud-based products through our Starling cloud service, and one of them is our two-factor authentication product. And as we talked to users, one of the things that became readily apparent was how painful it was when a privilege account was required for approval, whether that was one approval or multiple approvals. And so through our Starling service, specifically through some of the push to authenticate services that we have in Starling 2FA, we're able to extend the ability to approve privilege accounts via a mobile device. These mobile devices can be iOS-based, Android-based, and also through a Chrome application. And this gives the approver the ability to approve without having to jump on VPNs, without having to actually log into the privilege or log on to Safeguard. So they install our iOS or Android app. They're able to pair that with their account that is connected to Safeguard. And then when when requests for approvals come to their user, it is also pushed to their mobile device, and they're able to simply press approve or deny. And this can be done without having to, again, get on the VPN. So, for example, if they're out on vacation or at a social event or anything that takes them away from their desk, obviously business doesn't stop, and especially in issues of break the glass moments where they need to approve them very quickly. This gives them the ability to do that through the mobile device, and it provides all of the relevant information, such as the duration, when the asset that they're requesting, the account that they're requesting, who's doing that. All that information is given to the approver so that they can request or they can approve or deny that immediately. So something that we're very excited about, and I think that that will be very beneficial to continue to allow security admins to require approvals for privileged accounts. And then the final part of the frictionless security is being able to support multiple languages. So we know, again, that business doesn't run just in English. It can run in multiple different languages. And so Safeguard supports 11 different languages in the 2.0 release. Many of the languages, European languages, French, Italian, German, Spanish, languages in APJ, so Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and even for our friends in the Middle East, we have support for Arabic. Another part of frictionless security is the ability to perform session management seamlessly. So again, talking to users, one of the complaints that could be that we heard was that when a security tool is rolled out, the requirement for custom agents, for agents to be installed, so on and so forth, can become cumbersome. And so Safeguard gives us a ability to allow a end user to continue to use the same client that they may have been using before the before the privilege account management tool was rolled out. So for example, if you're administrators, and many of them love whatever client that might be, they may be using OpenSSH on the Linux command line, they may be using PuTTY, they may be using the Windows RDP client, Royal TS, Secure CRT. These all may be very common. If you have a user base, you may hear these clients being used as they access their end user or their end targets. And so those users have macros, they have display settings, they have many different configurations already built after many years of administering these systems, and they don't want to lose them. So Safeguards gives them the ability to continue to use those clients, but be able to securely go through Safeguard to access them. So not only do we record all of those privilege account activities, but we also allow the play-in of the password without the user ever seeing that. So they can still use their client, never see the password, and have all of the recording and indexing that a security admin or CISO require. And so this is a great opportunity to continue to allow the user base to use their client, but allow the security team the visibility that they require. So again, we'll talk a little bit about the cloud environment. So again, today our security policy admins, our auditors are requiring us to manage our privilege accounts in cloud applications, and also requiring us to have things like 2FA and whatnot. So first, let's talk about what Safeguard offers the administrator that needs to manage privilege accounts in the cloud. So with Safeguard, and as we've talked to customers, we're starting to see that attacks against social media sites such as Twitter and Facebook are very damaging to the organization. And as those accounts are being shared across media departments, marketing departments, so on and so forth, it just takes one disgruntled employee or one slip up of an account not being the password changed to have a hack that can occur, and then have a hack occur and then have bad reputation on the business. And so one of the first sets of accounts that we have managed is the Twitter and Facebook accounts based on that. We also have feedback that as organizations continue to move workloads into places such as AWS and Azure, the management of those accounts for those consoles become important. And so we've also, in the 2.0 release, have started to manage AWS. In later releases of Safeguard, we'll also be managing Azure, and other SaaS applications such as ServiceNow, Workday, so on and so forth. Another part of the cloud is also being able to provide value to you as customers and your end users through cloud services. So again, today with Safeguard 2.0, we have two services that we offer, Approval Anywhere and Starling 2FA. And one of the exciting things is that we actually offer 25 accounts to or 25 licenses, which are 25 accounts to those services. Whenever an individual purchases Safeguard, or if you're a current TPAM customer and swap to Safeguard, you will also receive that offer. And that allows not only the use of Approval Anywhere, but also allows for customers that may not have a two-factor authentication service to be able to use our Starling 2FA service in the cloud to quickly provide protection to those privileged accounts. Also keeping in mind, though, that if you already have a two-factor authentication service, that you can continue to use that through our certified radius plugins that we have. We can also talk about tomorrow what we will be doing. So one of the next features that we'll be lighting up is we have a Starling identity and risk analytics service. And Safeguard will be integrating into that risk analytics service so that we can provide you a better view into risky privileged accounts that might be accessed in Safeguard. So that will be coming in Q4 of this year. So watch for that, but that's another exciting offering that we'll be having through our cloud offering, or through our cloud service, is linking our identity and risk analytics service with Safeguard to provide you better insights into risky privileged accounts or risky users inside of Safeguard. One of the things that we like to touch on is the advanced workflow capabilities that are in Safeguard. So this is a modular workflow engine, and it has many different options that you can use as you workflow your privileged accounts. Excuse me, many users decide that they want to have auto approve, but that isn't where workflow stops. Workflow has obviously many different attributes in it. So in Safeguard, we have the ability to require reason codes, ticket numbers, and also comments. And then we can also set approvers, so where approvers get alerted, do we want dual or single control or multiple control? And then do we want to allow for things such as the request to go through your push to your device with what we had mentioned before with Approval Anywhere. So one of the great things is with just to highlight on that page the ticketing systems. So we do have out-of-the-box integrations with both ServiceNow and Remedy. So many of those are popular ticketing systems, and you're able to connect Safeguard to, say, ServiceNow, to your ServiceNow tenant, and within seconds be able to start using the ticketing system inside of ServiceNow to bind the ticket to the privilege account request, but also make sure that the state of the ticket is in a correct state so that the user that is requesting their privilege account has to produce a correct ticket inside of ServiceNow. Other parts of the workflow engine, and this is around things such as sessions, is we can, this is an often requested access or often requested enhancement, is that the ability that we can terminate a session after it expires. So if you have contractors that have only 8 hours to do their job, we can, when a request finishes, we can terminate their access to that asset. And then they either have to re-request it, or if you're also doing, one of the other options we have is the ability to set requestable hours of the account. If they only can request from 9 to 5, they can come in the morning, request access to that asset, work for the allotted time that they're required, and then disable their access until the next morning. We can also turn on and off particular protocol what we call channels in the protocol. So for example, in SSH, as you can bring your own client, that also means that you can do things such as SCP a file to the host. If you don't want file transfers to occur, you can turn that channel off. with RDP, we can also turn off things like the clipboard. So if you don't want people to be able to upload through the clipboard, then that also can be turned off and disabled. And we also have command detection. So if, for example, and also recording. So I know GDPR and other European standards are becoming often looked at. So if there's certain requirements to disable recording or certain command detection based on regulatory environments, you can do that in the policy also, so that you can have some users, say in the United States, that you can record their sessions, but if you have a user in a regulated country that for some reason the session cannot be recorded, then you can disable that. We also have another feature called emergency access. So if, for example, you produce this policy that allows only certain access at certain times or with certain individuals, you can also write a policy that is a break the glass policy, what we call emergency access. Allows users to bypass that in emergency cases. However, the access is recorded as such so that you can produce reports based on users that have requested emergency access. And then based on those reports, you can file either audit exceptions or find out why those users had to request emergency access for those particular times. We briefly touched on this, but I want to double click on some of our clustering technologies. So Safeguard, we put a lot of good technologies and effort into the ability for disaster recovery, high availability, and clustering. The biggest one of those is the ability to have a multi-master cluster. So when you have Safeguard appliances, as you cluster them together, your users will be able to access every one of those cluster members to either request passwords, request sessions, make queries against the API. So this allows for horizontal scalability. So as more processing power is needed in the organization for either more sessions or more capacity to query against the API, you can add additional cluster nodes or additional nodes to the cluster, and that will continue to increase that scalability. So instead of having another cluster that requires its own set of policy management, its own set of user management, by adding those additional cluster members, you're able to fill out the capacity of that cluster, and without having to have a whole other set of management of another cluster. We are also able to do other things. So again, we have a whole robust set of diagnostic features. So if the cluster does have any problems, we're able to give that information to the admins through either syslog, SNMP, or through the interface itself. Again, we talked about this, but ticketing systems, just wanted to briefly touch again, out of the box for both ServiceNow and Remedy. And what this gives is the power of administrators and organizations that have already tightly defined ITSM workflows through those systems to just integrate into those so that your workflowing can either take full, or either your workflow can, excuse me, so your workflow can either use the ITSM workflows inside of that, or it can be supplemented. And that happens through tying a ticket number to the actual workflowing of the privilege account. So let's talk about discovery. So we know that there's hundreds of thousands in some organizations of privilege accounts, and having to pull those in could be monumental if it had to be done manually. So Safeguard includes a set of discovery tools to pull in both the assets and the privilege accounts from both directories or your other assets that are out there. So when we talk about discovery, we can discover privilege accounts and privilege assets, which are systems, through directories. So pointing to either an LDAP or Active Directory directory, we can pull in that information based on conditions that the administrator sets, whether that's the OU, whether that's based on attributes that are on the object. We can pull those in. We can also pull in assets from the network. So we have network scan technology that not only can scan the network and pull in assets if it finds them, but also can fingerprint them based on the OS. And so when it fingerprints it, for example, if we pull it in as a Linux asset, We know that by default, most Linux assets are to be managed via SSH since we are clientless. And so we can pull that in and set up the SSH connections based on some predefined attributes that the administrator has so that we can bring them under management quickly and efficiently. And then finally with local accounts, so every one of these assets have local accounts. We have a rules engine so that you can define attributes to discover those privilege accounts, whether it's a group membership locally on the box, whether it's, for example, UID or GID 0 on a Linux host. But you can give us those attributes, and then we can scan those assets and pull in those accounts as they initially are added, or we can scan them continually so we can make sure that that asset is in compliance and they can be continually added to the host. So as every PAM tool is obviously helps with auditing and being able to tie user activity to privilege accounts, we spent a lot of time making sure that we have a robust architecture for auditing. So all of this is done through the Activity Center, and we have a query builder technology to be able to build queries based on the information that you're looking for. So you can target specific users, specific assets, specific accounts, commands that may have been ran inside of the session. You can build these queries, and you can run those queries and produce the information that you need, so that your auditors can be given the information, or if you're doing any type of sorry, I lost the words. Any type of investigation into a potential breach, you have that data to determine who used that specific account for that specific time period. And one of the things to keep in mind that as privilege accounts grow, this audit data continues to grow. And one of the feedback that we heard from customers was, as my audit data grows, it can become longer and longer and longer to get these reports out and become more problematic and require me to potentially have to pull all of the data out of a vault and put it into a third-party solution. That use case is still supported in Safeguard, but one thing that we've done is made sure to optimize the storage of this information. And so as we've run our tests and as we've deployed this technology, again, as I mentioned, we can pull out billions of audit records within seconds, quickly and efficiently, so that as this audit data grows, it doesn't impact the ability to retrieve it from the vault. And then finally, as we mentioned, we talked about the API economy and having a robust set of open APIs. And Safeguard is no exception to this. The entire Safeguard platform is built on a web API architecture. So you're able to use these RESTful web interfaces to be able to pull out the data that you need or push data into the vault itself. But one thing to keep in note is that everything that is being done inside of the UI of Safeguard has an API exposed to it. So anything that we can do via the GUI, we can do via the API. And even more powerful is that there are some features today in the product that are only available via the API. These are things, for example, for power users, so that if, for example, you have to pull particular data, that data may not be accessible via the UI currently today. Again, we will add additional capabilities, but most users that are using the API, they may need only a subset of the information that is actually in the vault, and so your administrators are able to pull additional information if needed through the API, and then as that information might be needed in the UI, we can expose that. But one thing to note is that the API is very powerful, and it's the ability to integrate into additional systems helps with the API economy and being able to make those integrations. So what we'd like to do now is provide a demo and give you a demo of some of the capabilities inside of Safeguard. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So the first demo that we wanted to show is the ability for a user, an end approver, to approve a request. So what you're seeing on my screen, you'll see two screens. You'll see the screen of the approver, which is the Approval Anywhere app. and then you'll see this my screen, which I will be the requester. So this is the front of Safeguard. And so if you can see, I have my favorites pinned to the right-hand side here. So this is just a quick example of how quickly I can come in and get access to the SVC TPS report service account. So I make one click, I submit my request, and you'll see that that request will come through Safeguard and through the Approval Anywhere app. And when that comes through, then Kelly will be able to make that approval, and then I'll be able to get access to that privilege account. So now I have access to that, and for the next 2 hours, I can use that privilege account. So that was a seamless way of being able to get all of the information to the approver, and the approver to make a quick determination whether to request or approve or deny that request, and then I'm able to use that privilege account. So I'll go ahead and check that in. So another part of Safeguard is also what we talked about, the seamless way of being able to use our session technology. So again, I have another favorite pinned here for using SSH on the same asset for the Safeguard account on the Pi asset. So I'll submit that request. Now this is automatically approved. So that comes in and I have access to it right now. So I can go ahead and launch my client. So I'll click the play button. And then let me pull over my PuTTY account. Or sorry, my PuTTY application. So that's logging me in. A couple of things to note is, first of all, we use a secure one-time token for every user. So if there is a requirement for two-factor or strong authentication to the vault, we don't require the user to re-log in via PuTTY. They're just given a one-time use token that they can play in, and that token keeps track of their session so that we can have, for example, if we wanted to have multiple sessions, I can press the play button again. It'll launch another token. Those tokens obviously are different, but it keeps access to those. It shows those two sessions and is indexing them correctly. So I can come in here, I can run top. This is very similar. Run top, I can remove files, I can echo them back in. Tail. So we'll go ahead and close out these two sessions. One more point, as I mentioned before, if you don't want to use PuTTY, we make it very seamless to launch PuTTY, but say you have another application, Secure CRT, OpenSSH. In fact, I'll quickly run, I can quickly pull up OpenSSH on my host. So I can copy this in, and I can pull this on an OpenSSH. This is just an OpenSSH client that I have running. So I can log in. So I'm not using PuTTY. I'm just using another client on my desktop. So we can close that out. Let's go ahead and close out the request. So one of the other parts of Safeguard, as I mentioned, was the Activity Center. So this is what we have today. This gives us a quick and seamless way to pull in activity information. So for example, let's go ahead and look at session-specific data. We'll look at the session that I just ran. And as I mentioned, I did run, let's say I want to look at any time that the RM command is ran, because I'm very leery of sessions that are running RM. So I'll say, let's see the RM command on a session in the last 24 hours. I can run that. You'll see that I had 2 today, one earlier and then one during our session that we just recently had. You can see that I can actually look at the request, so I can look where that request came from, what entitlements and policies, all the session events inside of there. I can also see that there were the 3 distinct sessions that were running. I can show the details, so it looks like there were 5 events, and inside of it was when I ran that command. So I can go ahead and run that session. It'll launch a player. Sorry, I won't run the session. I'll launch the audit of that. It will pull up the player and load that in. I can go ahead and click play. We'll rescale the video. And I can show here as I'm running those commands, and I can scrub. I have thumbnail views of what's going on. I can scrub back and forth. And I can see as those commands are being ran and what the user saw on their screen. So that's just a couple of capabilities inside of Safeguard. I know really quick, but that gives us a view of what we offer today. So with that, Kelly, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you. I don't know if there's any questions or any.
Yeah, we don't have time for questions today, but we do want to thank everybody for attending. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to check out our other upcoming Get IAM Right Series Insight series webinars. And you can do that at oneidentity.com/Get IAM Right webcasts. Also, if you have any questions about Safeguard or what we've presented here today, feel free to reach out to anyone in sales and you can do that at sales@oneidentity.com. Thanks again for everyone for your time, and we hope you have a great day.